Welcome back. Isn't it exciting? It is for me. Political panel time. Let me introduce them to you. You know the hat. You know the face. Democratic strategist, CBS News political contributor Chuck Rocha. Republican strategist. He doesn't have a hat. He's got a face, though. Matt Whitlock. Matt, great to have you.
Good to be with you.
So the iron rule here is if I go to break with it, we start with it. 1-year moratorium in New York, data centers, hyperscalers. This is about the power of data, the power of billionaires, politically resonant?
Absolutely. But I also think that there's a lot more to this than people are talking about. I feel like John Fetterman raised an interesting point when he tweeted. Pennsylvania Democratic Senator. He tweeted, China wins with this. And I think that it does raise the question of, is this a smart or short-sighted policy? I think it's fair to raise questions. People have a lot of questions. They see data centers pop up really, really quickly.
And they don't know what it's going to do to their utility bills. They don't know what it's going to mean for water usage.
Yep.
They want some answers. And what strikes me, Matt, and I want to bring you in on this, Chuck, here's an entire industry. They can hire all the PR people on planet Earth.
Yep.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
And they still don't tell their story or explain what's going to happen.
I think that's what needs to happen here, but I also think it's important for people to know when they're getting played. The New York Times even reported that there's lots of signs of foreign influence amplifying anti-data center sentiment. And so it's fair to ask questions, but it's also fair to know when you might be getting played by a foreign op that wants America to be less competitive in things like AI development and build-out.
Chuck?
There's very few things in my 36-year career that I've seen that really motivate both sides of the aisle. And this thing, man, in rural Texas, where they have built a lot of these things, Republicans are taking to the street like you're trying to release the Epstein files. Absolutely. I mean, all around the country, it's a unique dynamic for Democrats because organized labor and the unions are building a lot of these things. They're creating a lot of jobs. And let me explain this. Because, to your point about them having unlimited money, they want these things built fast. So guess what? They're paying a lot of overtime. I've got laborers making $100,000 a year, and they're going to their Democratic allies going, whoa, 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 what are you doing here?
Absolutely.
While everybody else out in the neighborhoods are going, no, let's go to the street. So that's the conundrum the party is in.
That's exactly right.
So give me a sense, Chuck, what is the short and midterm outcome? Of this conflict.
If you mentioned Texas. If you look at what Gina Hinojosa, who's running as a Democrat against Abbott, who's been there for 1,500 years, she's talking about they should pay for themselves and they shouldn't be using electricity or water that the neighbors have to pay for. Well, that is a really good message to folks if you're trying to find a middle ground while she's out protesting the newly developed ones that are happening in rural Texas.
I think that's the key here is there could be a path forward that, uses innovation to make these work a little bit better. There's also got to be a payoff to the communities. And I think these companies are trying to find ways to make it a win-win situation. But again, people need to know when they're getting played by things like foreign adversaries.
So I want to talk to you about 2 ICE fatal shootings in less than a week, one in Houston and one in Maine. It clearly will reanimate the conversation about tactics, worst of the worst, and what kind of country we're in right now, Chuck.
Look, we're seeing this play out, and it's very disturbing within my community where I spend a lot of time, in the Hispanic community, where there's an anxiety. There's an anxiety of even folks that were Republican Latinos that voted for Donald Trump.
Gravitated there in 2024.
Absolutely, had historic numbers that voted for him. I give, as a Democrat, full knowledge of that. But those folks who I've been talking to in focus groups were like, sure, I wanted a secure border. And yes, I wanted folks deported that were going to come here to harm our country, but this is not what we had in mind.
Matt, this is a Achilles heel, it seems to me.
I think Maine Senator Susan Collins made a notable call to DHS to say, let's cut back on these traffic stops and things that we're seeing a little bit more danger than is necessary. And let's find a way to really focus on the safer apprehensions in ways that we can. There's so many people to focus on. Let's focus on the less dangerous.
But when Angus King, the independent senator from Maine, says in the last year, 200 people were arrested in Maine, 10% of them had criminal records outside of their undocumented status. He said 90% are not the worst of the worst, by definition, by DHS own statistics. There's an issue there.
There's an issue there, but I think countrywide, there's still a strong amount of support and polls for removing illegal immigrants, whether they're criminals or not. It's just the DHS needs to prioritize where it makes sense to have the least dangerous.
And do you have to die in the process?
There's 21 congressional seats that have more than 30% Latino population. Latino voters will decide the majority in the House. It was looking good for Republicans up until this point, and those numbers have tanked. It ain't just about immigration and ICE, but you have an anxiety of these Gestapos in the neighborhood laid over the economic anxiety we just described with these AI centers, the cost of bread and biscuits, whatever it is. There's a lot of tension on working Americans. It just happens that Latinos are at the lower rung of that, so they're feeling the squeeze the most.
Chuck Rocha, you get the last word. Matt Whitlock, great to have you here. Chuck, nice hat.
Thank you.
Nice blazer.
Ooh, it's summertime.
It's summertime. That's a summertime blazer.